Welcome back. Today we discuss the importance of good mental health and how it affects our economy. Mental health disorders like depression and anxiety are widespread globally, affecting millions. The World Health Organization notes that approximately 1 in 4 people will experience such conditions at some stage. These disorders carry a hefty economic burden, costing the global economy an estimated of $1 trillion yearly in lost productivity. In the Caribbean, stigma and resource shortages pose significant obstacles to accessing necessary treatment and support services, perpetuating cultural reluctance to seek help. Presently, we are seeing a shift in the way we focus on mental health in Belize with an increase of psychologists and psychiatrists. Today, we are joined by Dr. Dale Graham, licensed professional counselor. So, Dr. Graham, first and foremost, thank you for joining us today on Legacy Markets.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
So, from my understanding, you are Belizean born and bred. Can you tell us more about your background and how you became a part of the mental health industry?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to give you an abridged version of that. But really, I think it's been a matter of trusting the process. I started first as a high school teacher, where I recognized that there were a lot of students that were suffering from a lot of different social and economical issues. And really, I was trying to hold a space for them, and I recognized that I was not properly trained. And so that led me to pursue a master's in mental health counseling, which then also led me to pursue a PhD in counseling psychology.
That is amazing. Can you tell us more about the intersection between mental health and the economic progress?
Sure. I mean, it's the phrase, right? Health is wealth, and that's a real reality for everyone. However, I think a lot of people don't pay attention to the psychological part of our health and how important that is. And so what we're trying to do is to create that awareness for everyone, understand how important it is that the wealth of our nation is really dependent on how mentally and psychologically well we are.
I completely agree with you. And since, from my understanding, you are also currently based in the U.S. right now, and you've been visiting Belize back and forth, have you seen significant improvements within Belize in terms of mental health and resources?
I think in some aspects I have, even from some personal experiences of friends and family members who had needed mental health care, and being able to help them to access that. I recognize that there are some challenges and barriers. And one of the main barriers is the fact that a lot of people just don't know where to go. They don't know who to seek the help from. However, there are a lot of governmental resources that are available for people. I just think that getting that information out there to the population is not as widely available.
I completely agree with you. And for some reason in the Caribbean, when you talk about mental health, it's considered taboo or a subject that is it's too touchy. People don't want to admit that they need help. And we also have this culture of machoism, and the men in our society, they don't want to be open to help, or they try to mask it almost. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think one of them is definitely historical context, right? Especially as it relates to enslaved persons and slavery being a reality of our country and other places. It really conditioned a lot of people to not see mental health as an important aspect of it because we were literally seen as property, right? And I think as you touch on the aspect of men, this is a very gendered situation, but I think a lot of it is tied to cultural values that have been instilled in persons, where the aspect of machismo, right? Who's going to be the breadwinner? What is their perception of strength? And the fact that mental health, or even seeking mental health help is normally seen as a sign of weakness, and there's a certain stigma that's tied to that. So I think it's a mix of, cultural norms that have been so ingrained in our society, and at the same time, too, I think even current generations perpetuate that. So we're trying to push against that a little bit more.
I think that our generation is definitely focused a lot on breaking generational curses, and I think mental health is definitely one of those, and normalizing therapy, normalizing counseling, and most importantly, things that we can do that don't cost money. Can you give us some examples of what we can do to improve our mental health?
Yeah, most definitely. And I love that you framed it that way, things that are low cost. And one of them is seeking safe spaces. I think that's a more important aspect of it. Most of my clients will come to me and they're just like, you're the only person I could share this with. You're the only one I trust this much. And what I normally do is that I use the relationship I build with them to look at what are the factors as to why you trust me so much outside of paying me, right? The main factors were that they could trust me. I'm non-judgmental. It's an open space. And many times I'm not trying to listen to fix. I'm listening to understand. And so I think that's one of the easiest ways that we could create that space for other people. In addition to that, I would normally tell people, hey, touch some grass. Literally touch some grass, right? Get outside, take some walks, all right? Be able to also just find ways to be active. I do a lot of trauma work, and a lot of the trauma work that we do is that it's pent up in the body. And I could talk to you forever, but that's not going to be the best way for you to be able to relinquish yourself of some of those symptoms. So what I normally encourage them is that get active. It doesn't mean you have to go in the gym and lift 100 pounds. It means turn on some music and dance. All right? It means get with your friends, hold hands, and take a walk. All right? It means engage in a conversation that's going to be moving for you in a space that you could truly show up and be yourself. And really, those are some of the most cheapest, easiest, but most effective ways.
Absolutely. And when you are doing those things and participating in those daily, you feel better. And when you feel better, you're more productive. And I think that's where the conversation lies in today. How is our mental health affecting our productivity and our work life and our relationships?
Yeah, definitely. I think like you said in the intro, right? The World Health Organization estimates that we lose $1 trillion as a result of mental health issues. So what we're trying to do is that we're trying to bridge that aspect of being productive, but seeing productivity way broader than the spectrum that one it actually is. And a large part of productivity is also rest. Being able to figure out when your body and your mind has had enough, you need some break, you need a time to step away from that. That's a key part of it.
So what strategies do you believe are essential when it comes to addressing these challenges to foster both our well-being and economic growth?
Yeah, I think that the strategies obviously need to be multifaceted. I think that there's multiple sectors as we think about mental health, but especially as it relates to our economy. I think one of the best ways is that we could learn from what other places have done and taking their examples. So for example, in terms of the health sector, one of the key strategies recently has been that 20% of women, upon getting pregnant and giving birth, will experience a mental health issue. And so what a lot of nations have done is that they decided, let's put more priority into that. So what they did is that they ended up training more health professionals to be able to screen and assess, so for easier intervention. All right, so for 20% of women, we think about the amount of women who give birth on a daily basis all across the world. So that's one of the main strategies, is taking healthcare. But in addition to that, the educational sector is another important part where, once again, learning from best practices, right? A lot of countries have looked at the experience of bullying and how much that impacts mental health. The experience of suicide among school-age children is extremely high across the world, but especially in the Caribbean region too. And we found that bullying was one of the main causes. So what they strategize is that, hey, if bullying is a concern, let's look at ways that we could tackle bullying. And also let's look at ways that we could build the resiliency of kids that are actually in school. And all of these impacts have further effects on the economy, right? Whether it's the kids, whether it's the mothers giving birth, whether it's the people in the workplace, we need to take a multifaceted approach because that's the only way that we'll actually have a healthy population. And I don't just mean physically healthy, psychologically healthy. To be able to not only navigate the challenges that life brings, but also be able to change some of those generational things you mentioned earlier, right? Change some of the norms so that we could create new norms that are a little bit more sustainable for our population.
I completely agree. And Dr. Graham, many corporations are even adding mental health benefits and resources to the workplace. What is your opinion on that?
I love it. I can't encourage it enough. I think it's one of the main ways that we could help our population to thrive and to be more healthy. And I think the corporations and the organizations are the most fitting to be able to provide that help for them. The Employee Assistance Program is something that a lot of countries have attempted to do. I know that it's present in multiple places in Belize as well. And what that does is that it creates a sense of normalcy that like, hey, it's okay to not be okay, all right? When most people are on the job, they're thinking about their productivity. How much can I do and how much can I get done? And I think we have a culture here in Belize sometimes, and other places too, that we think about struggling with our mental health as a sign of weakness. That's going to prevent us from getting the things done that we actually need to do. When in reality, when you get the help you need, it creates a momentum for you to be more motivated. You have more energy, you have more clarity, you're more creative, you're more engaged in the work that you're actually doing. So by extension, the productivity that you're going to produce or that you are going to kind of manifest in that moment is by far none. So I'm really happy to hear that we're having more employee assistance programs. Okay,
and our final question is, how can we destigmatize mental health issues as a community and foster a better place for the future and for the younger generation?
Yeah, I think once again, there's a lot of different ways that we could go about it, but I think one of the first ones is being able to start right within our own communities. I grew up on the south side of Belize, all right? I've experienced both within family and also the larger community, a lot of the social ills that plays a lot of our people, all right? Things that are very traumatic. And I think a large part of us being able to create a bit of a change and a wave is for us to normalize emotions. Normalize the aspect that you go through hard things and hard things have an impact on you. And when you have hard things happen to you, sometimes you need some support to get through that. All right, and I think a large part of destigmatizing mental health is talking about it more, being able to verbally say, hey, like, I'm not my best today. All right, I'm having a moment. All right, I need some help. I need someone to talk to. And I think a large part of that is just identifying our emotions, looking at someone, right? Being able to connect with them and actually be honest in our experience, and also not be worried about the judgment that may come from that. In addition to that, though, I think on a systemic level, our country also needs to do more. I think that access to resources to be able to support persons when they are having a mental health crisis is a key part of destigmatizing it, because if we live in a place that they don't offer the resources, then that means that the issue is being ignored. And so I think one of the main strategies is starting in your own family, your own community, sharing emotions, being open to that, being open to needing and requiring support from people. But also on like a larger scale is the countries and the organizations being able to actually invest in their resources, which are the people. And the only way you invest in that is creating policies and putting practices in place that are not haphazard. I think it's important for us to look at the fact that none of these things are new. Mental health has been an issue across the globe. And there are a lot of places that have a lot of best practices that they would really want to implement. And so I say, let's learn from the people who did it already. I spent a lot of time kind of researching a lot of countries that are quote unquote the happiest. All right, so we normally hear about like Norway or Switzerland, and they also have the highest resources put into mental health. And they also have the highest productivity. So there's an obvious connection there. If your people are balanced, if your people are cared for, your people will produce.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Graham, thank you for joining us on Legacy Markets Business Show, and we want to wish you the best on all your future endeavors, and may you continue to advocate for mental health, especially in the Caribbean region.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. When we return, we will be joined by Michael Young from the Belize American Chamber of Commerce. Stay tuned.